pursuing what I said from day one was pursuing Dominion, even if you believe it, is you'll never prove it and you'll discredit election challenges. And that's exactly what happened. And this week in Delaware, the Delaware court denied NewsMax's motion to dismiss. So now pretty much everybody, Fox, NewsMax, One America News Network, and Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani, everybody, Patrick Byrne, they're all going to have to face jury trials on Dominion. Now, a lot of them supposedly said they wanted to. We'll see whether they can use discovery aggressively, but my guess is that they're all going to lose those cases because they said some things that didn't take much effort to figure out were not true.
Factually incorrect. Just outright factually incorrect. And so the only question is going to be the damages. Now, Robert, there might be the argument in the Dominion case, the truth would have been just as bad as the lie, or the lie was inconsequential. Okay, fine. So they're not related entities to Dominion was not related.
The problem is Dominion keeps getting proof of this. So for example, this past week, New Mexico, a county in New Mexico refused to certify an election because they wanted further inquiries into how Dominion processes things. Okay, so now the New Mexico Supreme Court stepped in and forced them to certify the election. So they did. There were legitimate questions that county had, but focusing on Dominion tends to discredit the other questions that they have.
So I've heard this story. Which election were they refusing to certify? It was a local election. It was not. This was not referring back to 2020.
No, yeah, it was not back to 2020. It was a recent election in New Mexico. I think it was Otero County, if I recall correctly. But there were legitimate grounds to bring challenges and or want better election review, and it's good that people are taking over the local election councils to do that kind of inquiry. They just didn't go about the process the right way in this particular instance. And people can say Dominion was a factor. The problem is Richard Barris and I looked at it. There's no meaningful discrepancy between Dominion counties and non-Dominion counties in terms of what happened in the election. There just isn't.
And
this was broken. You have to start there. And if you also understood what was happening, I knew because I was on the ground in Georgia, and everybody was worried about. They wanted us focused on Dominion. Here's the problem: Dominion isn't in most of Pennsylvania. Dominion isn't in a bunch of counties and states across the country where this mattered, where the same election irregularity took place. So how do you explain that? The idea that was never going to get anywhere. People wanted to believe it. It was an effective red herring, and they did severe damage to challenging and contesting the election because of it.
No, forget that.
Whether you look at it as a matter of fact or look at it as a matter of consequence, it was a failure. It just was. And I'm not a fan of machines being involved in elections at all. But in this election, machines are not the reason for what happened. Why was there no signature match check ever done? Because everybody was obsessed with the machines. Yeah, and and it led to an easy red herring. It led to people straw manned their own argument. They created a straw man that was easy to knock down in support of their own argument.
The ghost of Hugo Chavez.
Yeah, and all this other stuff. You're confusing Dominion with Smartmatic. I'm sorry, that's just inexcusable. Pretending there's German servers involved and Chinese ballots involved, that's inexcusable. That was ridiculous. It was almost bad faith, the degree to which Sidney Powell and others made egregious mistakes. I won't say we're discussing it, but we had this discussion at Waffle House, and people were like, what you're saying suggests that was deliberate by those people because they so badly sabotaged the election challenges that you'd almost think it was intentional given the sophistication of some of the people involved. Now Patrick Byrne, he just may be totally insane, but continuing to believe the Dominion myth about explaining the election is what happens if you get rid of Dominion? And you're not going to change what could happen because it could happen easily all over again. Signature matches are the most effective measurement of integrity in mail-based elections. They always have been. That needs to be the focus. If you don't focus there, you're a sucker and a sap.
And I just said Barnes is pissed in the chat, by the way. But just so nobody thinks that Robert and I are making this up ex post facto, like after the fact, we've seen the way it turned out. Barnes was on this. First of all, Robert, I'm not trying to put you under the spotlight, scrutiny, or whatever. You called out Q as what you thought was a psyop before I even knew what Q was. You were ahead of the curve on that. People can go back and watch our streams. You were saying that Sidney Powell and Rudy Giuliani were making factually incorrect statements before the defamation lawsuit even was born. And this is not Monday morning quarterback or backseat driver. We were discussing this months before any of this actually occurred. You were sensitizing me to this months before. And then lo and behold, set aside all of the stuff about digital. Yes, PBS ran a report on Dominion in 2020. CNN reported on it in 2017. Set aside all of that. They documented how it happened in that Time article magazine. And meanwhile, everyone was just talking about conflating Smartmatic with Dominion. Gun-drawn raids of servers in Germany, which made everyone look stupid for having repeated them, from Giuliani to Powell to whomever.
The best way to describe it is Dominion is to the 2020 election what Lee Harvey Oswald was to the JFK assassination.
Oh, well, does that not make me want to go and look up you've done a hush-hush on this, correct, Robert?
Oh, yes. And Eric Hunley on their America's Untold Stories with Mark Grobert did a whole Q&A recently on the JFK assassination that was really intriguing. And so and they're right that, when you're on target, is when you'll get the most criticism. When you're off target is when you'll get the most celebration. And so the signature matches were always the key. They never did it. Dominion was always a red herring. Doesn't mean I'm against all machines being involved in elections, but that isn't what happened in 2020. And so we'll see. I mean, and here's what they're going to re-narrate this in 5 years, because Dominion's going to win all these suits, and they're going to say that everything was just about Dominion. And as juries found in every jurisdiction to adjudicate it, they found that the allegations of election fornication are wrong, because they're going to limit it to the Dominion side. Kind of like they did with Pizzagate. They reduced Pizzagate not to whether or not you have elites involved in Epstein-style behavior, but whether a particular pizza place had something illegal going on. They're going to do that all the way through and try to rewrite history. Now, I think their full efforts will be unavailing, but it's unfortunate people got caught down that rabbit trail.
I got to write this down, Robert, before I forget. When you're on target, they criticize. When you're off target, they celebrate. And when you're over target, they ... fill it in. And I can't help but think of Epstein.
Ghislaine Maxwell, speaking of legal news, was begging for reduced sentencing in part because she had evidence and information that people had been paid or promised payment in exchange for killing her while she was in custody. So we'll see if there's any full investigation of that. Bill Burr was busy telling us that Jeffrey Epstein definitely just killed himself, and busy telling us that that the election 2020 was just fine. Which, he challenged 2,000 Mules. You can almost guarantee he didn't watch 2,000 Mules. Dinesh D'Souza offered to publicly debate him, which he, of course, has not taken up because he's a wuss. And people, we talked about it in the special limited exclusive edition for Timcast. So that's the interview after the interview that's only available at timcast.com. Bill Barr's unique, not Bill Burr, don't want to defame Bill Burr, Bill Barr's unique history and his father's unique history. You can go there if you're a member of Timcast and watch that interview. That was a lot of fun. Speaking of why we were on Timcast, was the new Rumble proposed rules. And I posted them up on Locals, a link to it. And you can review them for yourself. And Rumble, to its great credit, has created a participatory process. So not only are the rules open source, so anybody can copy them, no copyright, nothing else asserted. They're also not the final rules. These are just proposed rules. And Viva and I spent about better part of 6 months working on crafting and creating these rules.
Long time.